Dignity isn't something that can be imposed. It can only be recognized. And that dignity is found in the freedom to choose. Let me be blunt. When pain becomes a relentless torture, when every moment is an agony you can't escape, who has the right to force you to endure it? My demand for choice is not a rejection of life, but a desire to end it in harmony with the values that defined it. That is the essence of self-determination.
Dignity is not a feeling. It is a fact. It is inherent, inalienable, and it does not depend on your circumstances. The moment we accept that some lives are not worth living, we create a society where human value becomes conditional. Today, it's the terminally ill. Tomorrow, it's the elderly who are tired of life. The day after, it's anyone deemed a burden. History teaches us that when we start measuring the worth of a human life, we are on a dangerous path with no return.
You invoke a slippery slope as if it were a law of physics, yet you ignore the evidence. The Netherlands has had legal euthanasia for over 2 decades. The data shows their review committees work, with independent second opinions being mandatory. Regulation transforms a hidden underground practice into a transparent, controlled process. It protects the vulnerable instead of abandoning them to either unbearable suffering or a violent, traumatic suicide.
You see reassuring numbers. I see a terrifying trend. In both Belgium and the Netherlands, the law has expanded from the terminally ill to the chronically ill, then to those with psychiatric disorders, dementia, and even children. In Belgium, nearly a quarter of cases now involve non-terminal polypathologies. And what about the documented cases of non-voluntary euthanasia? A study in Flanders found that in 1.7% of all deaths, lethal drugs were administered without an explicit request.
That is a distortion. The law's evolution reflects a society's democratic maturation, not an uncontrolled slide. But let me ask you a more direct question. Have you ever held the hand of a loved one as they begged for the end to come? I have. I have seen them abandoned by institutions, forced into an inhuman agony. In Oregon, 84% of those who use assisted dying are cancer patients with a terminal prognosis. They are not fleeing life. They are seeking dignity in death.
And compassion cannot be separated from truth. I have seen people suffer, which is precisely why I advocate for world-class palliative care, not a lethal injection. You underestimate what modern pain management can achieve. And when we hear unbearable suffering, we must recognize it often masks depression, isolation, or the fear of being a burden. Problems that demand human connection, not a final solution.
Palliative care is essential, we agree, but it is a dangerous illusion to believe it can solve everything. Dr. Philip Nitschke, who has assisted dozens of people, warns that prohibition doesn't stop death. It just makes it lonely, violent, and brutal. Hanging is the most common method. Is that the compassionate society you want? One where people die alone and in terror?
You're creating a false choice between agony and euthanasia. Deep palliative sedation, which is already legal, can relieve even the most extreme pain. But the intent is different, to ease suffering, not to cause death. When we legalize euthanasia, we turn healers into executioners. The bioethicist Leon Kass argues this corrupts the very soul of medicine and shatters patient trust. Think of the pressure on the elderly, the disabled, the poor, who may feel a duty not to be a burden.
You are not talking about forcing anyone. We are talking about giving a choice to those who want it. And no doctor is obligated to act against their conscience. But I ask you, by what right can you or the state deny a person control over the final chapter of their own existence? If we demand freedom in every other aspect of life, why deny it at its most painful end?
You speak of freedom as if it exists in a vacuum. But our choices send a powerful message. When a society legalizes euthanasia, it declares that some lives are not worth living. Disability rights groups like Not Dead Yet are screaming this from the rooftops. They call it the deadliest form of discrimination. The most common reasons cited for requesting euthanasia, loss of autonomy, being a burden, are the daily realities of life with a disability. Are we telling them it's better to be dead than disabled?
Your view infantilizes people, treating them as incapable of making a conscious choice. Who are we to know what is best for another human being facing their own private hell? Look at the case of Vincent Lambert in France, kept in a vegetative state for years against his presumed will, trapped in a limbo that was neither life nor death. Is that the protection you offer, an artificial existence stripped of all dignity?
The Lambert case proves my point exactly. He wasn't dying, he was a man with a profound disability. His death by dehydration wasn't a liberation, it was the abandonment of a vulnerable person. And this leads to the economic reality no one wants to discuss. Euthanasia is cheaper than long-term care. A Canadian study projected savings of up to $138 million. In Oregon, patients have been denied chemotherapy but offered coverage for assisted dying. This isn't about choice, it's about cost.
Our fundamental difference is this. You believe dignity requires preserving biological life at any cost. I believe dignity includes the right to decide when that life is no longer bearable. You fear a system that is too permissive. I fear a system that is too cruel. The truth is, palliative care and medical aid in dying are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. Respect for the individual. The ultimate compassion is to walk with someone to the very end, honoring their choice, even when it is not the choice we would make for ourselves.
And our fundamental difference is this. You believe compassion means granting a request for death. I believe true compassion means eliminating the suffering, not the sufferer. It means staying by their side and reaffirming the infinite value of their life, no matter how fragile. Once a society accepts that some lives can be intentionally ended, the boundary will always shift. The real challenge is not to offer death as a solution, but to build a society that never, ever gives up on its most vulnerable members. A society that proves in every action that every life is worth living.